Vampires. Can't live with them, can't kill them. Or can you?
Because that's how you get ants!
Vampires seem to exist on a sliding scale where at one end you have the teen heartthrob love interest and on the other you have the rabid, inhuman monster with no memory of its previous humanity, if it was ever human to begin with. All other vampires live somewhere on that scale in between. Another thing about vampires is that they seem to be the subject of some pretty bad movies. Which brings us to Blade Trinity. Blade Trinity was the ending of a lot of things. It was the ending of the Blade series, it was the death of Wesley Snipes as the character Blade, it killed the idea of any prequels. It may even have murdered the chance of an Underworld Blade franchise crossover. Troubled by production problems and a reluctant lead, who's to say? Philosopher Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz theorized that the world we live in, the universe that God chose to exist, is the best of all possible worlds. If you want to get deeper into it, the theory is an attempt to explain the existence of evil and why God would allow evil to exist. Candide was a satirical response to the philosophy. Those philosophers were real cut-ups. While Voltaire could only find criticism for Leibniz, let's see if we can find anything nice to say about Blade Trinity.
Blade Trinity.
The reason why I brought up Leibniz's philosophy is because as long as we have the best possible world, Blade Trinity has to flop. In fact, every Ryan Reynolds movie needs to be terrible because if any project Reynolds worked on was successful, Deadpool wouldn't exist. Yes, viewers, the greatest thing to come out of Blade Trinity is Deadpool. Reynolds plays Hannibal King, a member of the vampire hunting group Night Stalkers. He's basically rough draft Deadpool. He's got a mouth on him, but he's still really good at killing vampires. Why? Because he used to be one. You may not believe me about King, so I'll raise you one. A lot of Hannibal's best lines were improv'd by Reynolds. If you get a chance, take a look at the outtakes and jokes that ended up cut from the movie. It was included with the DVD extras. Be aware, though, the language is not suitable for children.
Darkcore, trip hop, whatever kids are listening to these days. Me, I'm more of a Celine Dion fan. She's a Canadian treasure.
Just put your glass.
Blade Trinity is just fantastic fun. It's action scene after action scene. We see in the beginning the vampires are searching for the original vampire, the creator of the species. We get our main bad guys, Parker Posey and Triple H. Parker Posey up to this point was a quirky indie darling best known for comedies. Triple H is Triple H. He cuts a pretty intimidating figure. And in the movie, where everything is pretty excessive, his bulging muscles and WWE in-ring persona fits right in. These are the two characters we're first introduced to, which should give you a tonal expectation going forward. It's going to be weird, quirky, and over the top. Parker Posey is pretty fantastic in this. It's funny to watch her ham it up around her fangs. All of the villains in the Blade movies have been over the top, and it's funny to see her deliver an outrageous performance. She's a new kind of enemy for Blade. In a franchise where Blade just has to slaughter bad guys, Posey's Danica Talos is smart over brute strength.
I like your tattoos. Do they mean anything?
In the big action opener, Blade kills a bunch of dudes, vampires, and the vampires film him killing a human. Chris Christopherson returns as Whistler and explains to us why it's bad that Blade killed a person on camera. Vampires turn to ash and leave no evidence. Killing a person, even someone who works with the vampires, is a bridge too far. The idea is a good one. So far, humanity has been ignorant to the war between Blade and the vampires. Now they turn on Blade as some crazy murdering nutcase. His mission is to save people. Killing them is against his mission statement. Whistler destroys the evidence of their existence during a police raid. Blade is arrested. It's pretty typical in a Blade movie to somehow separate him from Whistler. He has always been Blade's biggest weakness. Every movie has them separated. But this time, Whistler ain't coming back. I like that they turned Blade into public enemy number one. Blade was never really a vampire killer because he wanted to save humanity. He hated vampires because they killed his mother. And then it was revealed that she was alive as a vampire and he kills her. It's not a great family movie. Now, if we learned anything from the second movie, Blade works better with a team. So here we have the Night Stalkers to the rescue. Based on all available stories, it seems like Wesley Snipes was not interested in playing Blade anymore. Jessica Biel and Ryan Reynolds get a ton of screen time, and the rest of the Night Stalkers get their own spots. The standouts are Natasha Lyonne as Scientist Summerfield. She's developing a virus that will wipe out the vampires. The character is blind, which was an interesting choice when she's being stalked by Drake later. Patton Oswalt is also on the team as the weapons developer. I wish we'd gotten more of all these characters. We get hints of Abby's dark past. She's pretty serious. King is the funny one. He's also the former vampire, which builds on the idea of Karen developing a cure in the first movie. It doesn't really matter, though, because everyone gets killed except for Beale, Reynolds, and Snipes. They're the Trinity. Get it? The best parts of this movie are the action scenes, which is good because there are a lot of them. There's a scene where Jessica Biel lures these vampire punks into a subway platform and just murders the crap out of them. At one point, a silver blade springs up out of her boot, and for the remainder of the fight, every time she walks, you hear it clinking on the ground. We're also introduced to the UV arc, which is pretty fun. I like that they make a distinction with the vampires. Some of them are just dumb punks. They aren't particularly good at fighting. When facing a highly trained human, the advantage vampirism affords them doesn't outweigh the training. To contrast, Drake is a warrior. Only Blade, with his heightened abilities in conjunction with his training, stands a chance against him. So, Abby Whistler carries a bow and arrow. You might wonder why use a bow and arrow when everyone has guns, and to be fair, she uses the more logical weapons most of the time. She only pulls out the bow for special occasions. Looking at you, Hawkeye.
And I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense.
There are multiple plots going on here.
Plot number 1.
In 1, the vampires have resurrected Drake in order to unlock a new stage of their evolution. Likely something that will allow them to go out in the sunlight, as Drake is a daywalker. The Night Stalkers are developing a virus to kill vampires while bypassing humans. A sample of Drake's blood would allow them to do that because he was the original vampire.
Plot number 2.
The other plot is the deeper conspiracy of vampiric control. The vampires have been picking up drifters and homeless and putting them in facilities to harvest their blood. These humans are brain dead, comatose, but alive enough to keep producing fresh blood. Blade and Abby find a facility and shut it down. This plotline doesn't really have much of a conclusion. I'm pretty sure this is where they were setting up a spin-off Night Stalkers franchise. Even though Wesley Snipes allegedly hated making this movie, there are some great moments for him. During the police station escape, he gets a hit of his serum, breaks the handcuffs, and gets up in this rage-filled slow motion shot that looks kind of great. While King is being tortured, we find out that the vampires are combining vampiric DNA with animals. The only animal we see so far are dogs. There's a vampire Pomeranian. It's outrageous and hilarious, but I have questions. Does a vampire dog need human blood or dog blood? What other animals are vampired? If a carnivore becomes a vampire, what really changes? There's a lot of Blade Trinity to love. Vampire movies and franchises tend to get more and more ridiculous as time goes on. Villains and heroes get more and more powerful. Fight scenes and action scenes up the ante. Blade Trinity doesn't really take many risks or try to offer much of a deeper mythos to its own history. This movie is pretty much just a series of over-the-top action sequences strung together by Parker Posey and Ryan Reynolds having the time of their lives as it bumbles around a sort of plot.
You're tasting a little bland, lover. Are you getting enough fatty acids in your diet? Have you tried lake trout?
I can tell you 2 things. 1, your hairdo is ridiculous. 2, I ate a lot of garlic. And I just farted. Silent but deadly.
If that makes it a bad movie, okay. But sometimes you just want a series of ridiculous action sequences loosely strung together. Not every movie needs to argue the philosophy of the existence of evil as a way to identify good, which is what makes this the best possible world. If a movie isn't fun, why are we watching? And if you really just can't get over any of it, think of Blade Trinity as a 1 hour and 53-minute audition for Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool. That's all for this episode of Anything Nice to Say. Thanks for watching, and never be ashamed to like what you like. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Check out our merch store for new designs, and subscribe to us on Patreon for exclusive content. Vampire.